Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. In today's episode, we'll be using one of the original identities, LCB Ryoshu. She is without a doubt one of the simplest identities in the entire game. Not that that's a bad thing, mind you. All of her skills have some sort of damage modifier, whether it be from poise, damage up, or even her passive. There is no subtlety in her kit, she is purely a DPS unit and nothing else. The best and most unique part about her is her skill 3, which provides 2 slash damage up on combat start. This means that she effectively has 20 to 100% bonus damage at all times, assuming you are able to use at least one skill 3 every turn. There are very few enemies that are capable of dealing with this amount of damage, and even the most resisted ones don't stay resistant with enough damage modifiers. The notable support passives for this run are Blade Lineage's Song for extra poise count, or at least he would if all of Ryoshu's poise was at next turn, which makes his passive not work for some reason. Blade Lineage Faust for defense down when we crit, Captain Ishmael for more poise generation, and 7 Heathcliff because none of his support passives actually support Ryoshu. Our starting gifts for this run are Cigarette Holder and Old Wooden Doll. We choose the Outcast for the first floor, and manage to find Bloody Gadget early on before heading into the boss against Ebony Queen's Apple. This boss is easy like always, even more so with an evade. With Bloody Gadget and simply using 2 skill 3s, Ryoshu is capable of deleting half of the Ebony Queen's HP. She literally does quick suppression levels of damage as a 1-star base identity. Honestly, the only thing separating her from Rabbit Heathcliff is, number 1, his evade is better, and number 2, Fragile is a more supportive status effect. We take Nebulizer as our reward and head into Falling Flowers for the next floor. Here we buy a necessary skill 3, which I will explain why in a second, Devil's Share, and Spice Bush Branch. Before we make it to the boss, though, I was forced into a particularly nasty elite encounter against K-Corp. The reason this was such a difficult fight was that every enemy, bar the Class 3 personnel, exclusively used 3-coin blunt skills, which, being a frail identity as well as being weak to blunt damage, meant I would always get staggered turn 1 and then immediately die turn 2. Quite literally, the only reason this encounter wasn't an instant reset was the fact that the Class 3 personnel were fatal to slash damage, allowing me to use Red Eyes and execute one of them. Following it up with 2 skill 3s, we defeat 2 more enemies with our honestly absurd damage output and get staggered in turn. With only 2 enemies remaining though, we can easily survive the stagger and end up getting sticky muck for our troubles. The boss for this floor is none other than Dongbake, and if I thought that the last fight was difficult, oh boy was I not prepared for this one. This fight demands absolute perfection. If you miss even a single coin roll during the first 5 to 6 turns, it's an instant loss. The amount of identities capable of soloing this fight are incredibly slim because of how much it actually demands from you. The first difficulty is the actual main gimmick itself. Each of Dongbake's attacks inflicts blooming, which if you ever have 5 or more of them, you instantly lose the fight. This means evade identities are the only ones capable of soloing this fight, as if you do not have one, you simply lose on turn 1. More than half the resets for this fight were because of random missed evades, which makes this fight the biggest RNG fest in the entire game. But don't worry, we're not done with the RNG just yet. If you can survive the first 2 turns, Dongbeak transitions into Phase 2, which has its own flavor of bullshit. Remember when I said we picked up a necessary skill 3? This is why. In addition to dodging everything, you need to have enough damage to be able to knock her down to 50% HP before the 4th turn. The reason why you need to do this is because if you don't, she will use 2 skills that inflict 3 blooming each on use instead of on hit, guaranteeing an instant loss. You can't dodge it, you can't clash with it, you can't even stagger her. The only way to avoid it is to get her to 50% HP. Technically speaking, the extra skill 3 isn't necessary, as you would have enough skill 3s in order to achieve this normally, but it does reduce a tiny bit of RNG on an already RNG heavy fight. Speaking of, we're not out of the woods just yet. Once you get her down to 50% HP, she will use her magnificent Spring Breeze skill, which thanks to our frailty, if it manages to connect, we get staggered, and you guessed it, it's an instant loss. We can only beat this attack with red eyes, and only if it rolls a tails. Even if by some miracle you manage to make it this far into the fight, success is entirely dependent on a literal 50-50 coin flip. God, I love this game. This one fight literally took me over an hour. It took me longer than the entire rest of the run combined. In fact, the rest of the run isn't even really worth talking about. It was so easy. Ryoshu has one of the highest damage outputs of any identity in the game, and that combined with an evade skill trivializes 90% of all encounters. The other floor bosses were Miracle in District 20, which doesn't have one, and KQE, who is barely a boss. The final floor was against Spiral of Contempt, who is kind of cool, I guess. I'll include his fight at the very least simply because he's somewhat rare, but it's not really worth commentating. This fight basically boils down to Dodge doing Dodge things and completely ignoring his main gimmick because resistances don't matter when you have a plus 500% damage modifier.
승객이 딱 한 방 먹였어.
아름답진 않네.
입에서 갑자기 쓴맛이... 위험한 일이 있을 때마다 이러는데...
예술이 뭔지 보여주지.
허파에 무거운 것이 가득 찰 것만 같은 기분이요.
예술이 뭔지 보여주지.
동랑님 지시로 응원용 파이를 사오긴 했지만 여건상 드시기 힘드시기에 제가 대신해서 먹어드리겠습니다.
예술이 뭔지 보여주지.
저기 희한한 공격을 사용하려고 하는군요. 개인적으로 전 야비한 방법을 사용하는 건 좋아하지 않습니다. 모름지기 전투는 정정당당해야 하지 않겠습니까?
예술이 뭔지 보여주지. 기다려. 아직 안 끝났어. 기다려. 아직 안 끝났어.
칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 승객이 딱콩 한 방 먹였어. 지금이 집중할 때예요. 마지막까지 직면해주세요.
예술이 뭔지 보여주지.
방금의 일격은 매우 좋았습니다. 제가 만약
아름답진
도시에서
않네.
야구 선수가 되어
적확한
홈런을 날렸더라면
하나비였어.
이런 기분이지 않았을까 싶군요.
고작 이 정도로 들떠한다면 예술가의 자격은 없는 거지.
Anyway, that's how I soloed Mirror Dungeon 4 hard with only base Ryoshu. I know I cut out a lot of it, but after nearly losing my mind to Dongbake, I just wanted to finish the run, and ended up picking not that interesting bosses for the last few floors. Even still, Ryoshu is very solid for a base identity. I don't think she's very good in the team though. She really needs her skill 3 to do anything meaningful, and having access to more of them makes her do even better. Anyway, like and subscribe to not miss next time where we'll be using this mysterious character. Goodbye!